A car bomb right in the heart of Delhi, a doctor who turns out to be a terrorist. So today, we're going to break down the story of the Red Fort blast. It's a plot that reveals a really new and frankly disturbing face of terror, one that's been hiding in plain sight.
So on November 10th, a Hyundai i20 just erupts in flames. At first glance, you might think it was just a tragic accident. But as investigators started sifting through the wreckage, a much more sinister picture began to emerge. And it begged a chilling question. Was this just some car fire, or was it the opening shot in a whole new kind of conflict?
Okay, so to really get the full picture here, we have to start with the blast itself. Because the way investigators classified this event, well, that's the key to unlocking this entire plot.
Right off the bat, this was no accident. Investigators were quick to classify the explosion as a Fidayeen attack. Now that single word changes absolutely everything. It means this was a suicide mission, a one-way trip. So we're not just looking for some guy who planted a bomb. We're looking for someone with an unbreakable and maybe even desperate commitment to their cause.
So who was this committed attacker? Well, the answer is probably not who you'd expect. It wasn't some hardened militant from a remote training camp. It was someone who could move completely invisibly right through our society.
So intelligence sources are pointing to one man, Dr. Umar Un Nabi, a medical doctor from Pulwama. And the working theory? He was panicking. Pure and simple. Turns out his associates in a wider terror module had just been arrested, and he knew he was next. His cover was blown, and in a final, desperate act, he detonated that vehicle. The car itself was obviously more than just a car. It was the weapon. And its history? Well, it had been deliberately scrubbed clean. For investigators, following that car's trail was absolutely crucial to unraveling the entire network. And check this out, because this chain of ownership, it's a classic terrorist playbook move. Look at this trail from Salman to Devender. Then it goes to Tariq in Pulwama, and finally, it lands in the hands of Dr. Umar, who's also from Pulwama. You see, the car was passed along like a hot potato, all to mask the bomber's identity. But here's the thing. That trail kept leading back to one place, a Kashmiri-based module.
But this panicked doctor, he was no lone wolf. Not even close. He was just one piece of a much, much larger puzzle. A sophisticated and, let's be honest, a terrifying organization.
Just hours before the Red Fort blast, authorities in Faridabad seized this. That's over 2,900 kilograms of explosives, including ammonium nitrate from Dr. Umar's associates. Now, to put that in perspective, this wasn't for one car bomb. No way. This was enough material for a whole series of devastating attacks, and it was all connected. And this gets to the heart of what intelligence agencies are now calling a white-collar terror ecosystem. Think about it. Doctors, academics, educated professionals, people using their respectable lives as the perfect cover. They can move money, they can travel freely, and they provide the kind of expertise that makes these terror groups so incredibly dangerous. So here's where it gets even more complicated. This domestic cell, right? This network of Indian professionals, they weren't acting alone. Oh no. They were taking orders, and they were getting support from well-known terror groups operating from across the border. The investigation connected the dots, and those dots led straight to two really notorious Pakistan-based terror groups, Jaish-e-Mohammed, or JeM, and Ansar Ghazwat-ul-Hind. The evidence suggests they provided the training, the explosives, and the order, strike at the heart of India.
But the plot, it was even bigger than that. Right before this attack, another group, Lashkar-e-Taiba, started issuing threats of an attack from the east through Bangladesh. You see the strategy here, right? You have JM carrying out a tactical strike in the west, while LET applies strategic pressure from the east. It's a coordinated two-front campaign designed to stretch India's security apparatus completely thin.
So when you're facing a threat like this, highly organized, coming from two directions, the response has to be just as swift and just as comprehensive. And the government's response was, well, immediate. They invoked the UAPA, that's the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, a really powerful anti-terror law that gives security agencies sweeping new powers. A high-level security review was called to figure out the full extent of the threat, and a national high alert put every major city and border on notice. The message was crystal clear. This is a national security crisis.
And honestly, this quote from a geopolitical analysis just sums it all up perfectly. The Red Fort blast wasn't just some isolated terror attack.
It was one move in a huge geopolitical chess game, a coordinated challenge designed to destabilize the entire country.
So, the takeaway here is both clear and deeply unsettling. The face of terror is changing. It's no longer just some figure lurking in the shadows. It could be the professional living right next door. And that leaves us with a really critical question for our time. When terror wears a lab coat, how do you even begin to spot the enemy?